Welcome to the Geneva Peace Week podcast series, a project of the Geneva Peacebuilding Platform. Geneva Peace Week was founded on the core belief that each person, actor, and institution has a role to play in building peace and resolving conflict. Geneva Peace Week is an annual forum in the peacebuilding calendar that includes ceremonies, high-level panels, policy briefings, workshops, videos, podcasts, and other special events. These free contributions are hosted by different organizations and actors around the world. This year, Geneva Peace Week celebrates its 10th anniversary and is held from the 30th of October to the 3rd of November, 2023. For more content, join us at the Geneva Peace Week or online at www.genevapeaceweek.ch.
Hello, you are listening to the second episode of Investing in Women and Peace, the stories of women's essential roles shaping peace processes worldwide. A podcast produced by Inclusive Peace and the United Nations Women's Peace and Humanitarian Fund, WPHF, for the Geneva Peace Week 2023 digital series. This episode will be moderated by Breifni Flanagan from WPHF, who is joined by Sophie Giscard. Sophie coordinates projects and programs across the funding windows of the WPHF and has previously worked as the UN Women Regional Office for Arab States in Cairo and at the UN Women Headquarters in New York. Sophie and Breifni will use the next 15 minutes to discuss how current trends and peace processes affect the work of the WPHF and provide examples of women's initiatives that the Rapid Response Window has supported more recently.
Hi, Sophie. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Breifni. Thank you for inviting us.
Sophie, in this current context with very limited participation of women in peace processes, the United Nations Women's Peace and Humanitarian Fund, WPHF, is supporting women and women's civil society organizations. Can you tell us more?
In a world where conflicts are on the rise, women's rights are being rolled back and women's participation in peace processes is almost non-existent. So supporting women's role in peace building and peace processes is more important than ever. And this stalling and changing form of peace processes requires more flexibility and creativity. Flexibility in the type of support needed for women and creativity as women find innovative ways of influencing the peace processes. Yet at the same time, there are still so many barriers to women's participation, as you know, of which one of them is funding. And in 2019, the Secretary General of the United Nations requested the WPHF to establish a rapid response window on women's participation in peace processes and the implementation of peace agreements. This instrument provides rapid and flexible funding and expertise support to women's organizations' initiatives to influence and participate in peace processes. This includes logistical costs, for example, for travel, language interpretation, and daily earnings, which are all a limiting factor for women's participation. But it also provides technical support through a network of UN expertise and international organizations. It's important to recognize and encourage the ownership of women over these initiatives. It's important to ensure that it's flexible, that they can adapt their initiatives and be reactive to the changing context and allow for these creative approaches to respond to upcoming initiatives or meetings. At the same time, the WPHF provides also long-term grants on conflict resolution for local initiatives, including local women's mediators' work for sustained and more inclusive peace. We recognize that peace processes do not stop at the negotiation stage. It starts before, and women's engagement should continue after, including through the monitoring and implementation of that agreement and in the localization of the peace agreement. It's also important to recognize the protection needs for women engaging in these peace processes. Women face threats aimed at silencing them and stopping them from participating. From kidnapping to sexual gender-based violence to harassment and threats against their families, support must be provided so that their participation does not come at the cost of their lives. The WPHF established a year ago a window for the protection and participation of women's human rights defenders, which works in complementarity with this rapid response window, supporting women's initiatives around peace processes.
Thank you, Sophie. Could you share more examples of women's initiatives supported by the Rapid Response Window?
As Tanya mentioned in the other episode, it's key to provide spaces and funding for women's organizations and coalitions to strategize and take action. In Yemen, we provided technical support and logistical support for 6 women living with disabilities to travel and meet with key stakeholders and develop recommendations around the peace process. The organization, Amina, was involved in the 3rd peace track process and the humanitarian truce, supported by the Office of the United Nations Special Envoy and UN Women, and ensured the involvement of these women with the Group 9 mechanism, the Pact, and the Yemeni Women's Technical Advisory Group. The organization developed a strategic engagement and advocacy plan to promote the meaningful participation and effective contribution of youth and women with disabilities in the process. Following this intervention and support, Women Living with Disabilities Group for Peace was born and continued to lead efforts and build alliances within women's rights CSOs in Yemen. Another example is in Cameroon, where the Rapid Response Window supported an organization called Reach Out Cameroon with both logistical and financial support. With this support, Reach Out Cameroon prepared and supported the participation of 5 indigenous women in the Indian Peace Conference in April 2022, led by the Prime Minister. The women jointly drafted a paper on behalf of all women in the conference to state their position with regards to peace building, with key recommendations, including the equal participation of women and men in all peace processes and development activities. The conference provided an opportunity for 5 grassroots women to engage fully in providing solutions to de-escalate tensions and violence, and ensuring that they are visible as key actors and continue to gain recognition and legitimacy to ensure their inclusion in the wider Track 1 and 2 processes geared towards this Anglophone crisis and resolving the conflict at the community level too. As a result, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet requested the National Advanced School of Local Administration to recognize and organize a training for women in several regions on effective leadership and preparation for elections. They have established a women's network of 40 women peacebuilders to contribute to the restoration of peace and social cohesion in the Andean division, and in line with the objectives of the Cameroon Major National Dialogue of 2019. This has ensured a gender-sensitive monitoring of the implementation of the dialogue to evaluate the work and roles that women play within the National Dialogue mechanism. There are many more examples, but what we see across all of these initiatives is that women are inclusive in both their approach and in the substance and the topics that they raise. They not only talk about women's rights, it goes beyond, it addresses a lot of other issues around the peace process. And ultimately, they ask for accountability so that a peace process does not just fall or stop at a specific stage, but that it has to be implemented and women and gender are mainstreamed across that implementation.
Thank you, Sophie, for sharing these concrete examples of women's participation in peace processes. We now turn to you for a final closing statement.
We should continue to support the work of women peacebuilders and women civil society organizations in both influencing and shaping the peace process. That means also supporting grassroots initiatives, as well as high-level advocacy efforts, and bringing in an inclusive and comprehensive approach to peace negotiations that women organizations and women human rights defenders and peacebuilders contribute to. It allows also for sustainable, locally owned peace agreements. And this includes also supporting those often most marginalized in peace processes, such as Indigenous women, women living with disabilities, women living in refugee camps, young women, amongst others. We have a collective responsibility to ensure women's meaningful participation in peace processes for more inclusive and more sustainable and more just peace.
You've been listening to the Geneva Peace Week podcast series. For more content like this, join us at the Geneva Peace Week or online at www.genevapeaceweek.ch.